All right, so we're continuing in our series on different types of literature in the Bible. I mean, the Bible has a lot of literatures. I mean, like different types of pop cultures or genres in the Bible. Last week we looked at the action genre. Also, Philip, did you subscribe to our YouTube channel? It's a Arise Youth Tube. Oh, yeah. I wonder if she subscribed. Well, anyways, make sure you like and subscribe, for future content and everything and sermons relating to these topics.
If you miss a sermon, that's why it's there.
So we are continuing in our series titled Lights, Camera, Action, which we are going to be looking at our current, the current pop culture genres through the book of Acts. And again, today we're going to be looking at other books besides Acts, but we're going to lead up to Acts and see how this genre applies today. So we're going to be looking at all these different, genre tropes in the Bible and and show how that affects us today. And so, what we are going to be talking about today, hang on, let it, is fantasy in the Bible, as you see. Yeah, we got, the Chronicles of Narnia. What?
Witchcraft.
What's witchcraft?
A book.
Well, no, not really. No, it's Christian.
Narnia was so good.
Yeah, Narnia is a Christian
What
book.
about Harry Potter? Is that witchcraft?
It's kind of Christian,
Harry Potter?
sort of. Let's not get into that right now. We have a limited time on the video stream. We're streaming live. Yeah. Anyways, so we are looking at fantasy in the Bible, such movies like Narnia or Lord of the Rings. Even Harry Potter would be kind of considered fantasy. Not really, but I mean something like Princess Bride. Those are fantasy. Although Princess Bride falls under romance, which we'll talk about later too. So be there for that. So what we're going to be looking at are different tropes of fantasy. So what are fantasy tropes? So we got, number one, we got the chosen one, like Harry Potter or Aslan from Narnia, or I forgot the guy's name from Lord of the Rings. I swear, if Lord of the Rings fan watch this video, they're going to hate me.
Doesn't it start with an M?
No, I think it's like Aragon. No, yeah, I think it's Aragon, right? The human king guy. Yeah, I think he's pretty much the chosen one because he's like chosen to become king, right? Frodo is just a hobbit that. Well, yeah, but I mean, his job is just to destroy the ring. Well, anyways, so the second one, we got dragons. There's dragons in fantasy usually, or mythical creatures. A lot of magical, mystic creatures, but mostly dragons, right? The big reptile with wings that either breathe fire, sometimes maybe ice, or maybe good earth, goodwill to men. Maybe they're just here to help us. And three, we got magic, or in this case, what we're talking about, miracles, magic and miracles. They are differences. If you perform a miracle that's not under God. I don't think I would consider it a miracle. It's just magic, that's not from God. And you're like, well, you're not from God, so, that's not a miracle. And so, we got ancient settings. The Bible is obviously an ancient setting. And so, ancient settings, just like old English times or old times at all, just like... Yeah, usually fantasy literature usually takes place in something at least English inspired, like Lord of the Rings and Narnia. They took place somewhere in England. Yeah, but that's still somewhere in England.
Are you calling Ireland England?
Well, anyways, so I mean we did kind of take them over, yeah. So yeah, they're part of England now. So anyways, and we also got castles, just like big buildings, beautiful buildings, Gothic castles, everything, and swords and bows, wars, stuff like that, people fighting with swords and bows. So anyways, so since we talked about that, you got all that stuff in mind. Now let's start taking a look at the actual genre itself in comparison with the Bible. So there is a light side and a dark side to fantasy. Now we're going to talk about the dark side first, and in case you didn't recognize that, that's the ice castle from Narnia also, and where the evil ice witch, who is the representation of the devil, it lives. She just like turns people to stone or something and puts them in that castle. And so there are dark sides and light sides to every genre, even to horror, which we're going to talk about horror later on. But let's look at the dark side first and look at the human condition and how the devil, who is the dragon, is how he has tricked the world. But we're not going to go back to Genesis. We did that last week, if you remember. So let's take a look at Revelation. We're going all the way to the end of the Bible this time. And so Revelations 12, verses 1 to 4. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head, while she was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns on its side, and tail swept a third of the stars of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that it might devour her child the moment that he was born. And so the dragon in the Bible is Satan. He's depicted throughout all of Revelation as being a dragon who just wants to destroy the earth, which is what that woman represents, is earth. And that little reference there, its tail swept a third of the stars of the sky and flung them to the earth. That's a reference to the fall. When Satan deceived a third of the angels and got them all kicked out of heaven. So I'm sure all those angels are really grateful to Satan. It's like, gee, thanks, Satan. We rebelled. Now we're condemned forever to hell. And so that's how Satan was kind of created, right? He rebelled against God. He was a beautiful angel. Now he's an ugly dragon. No mistake. You think dragons are cool. Satan is an ugly dragon. He's got 7 horns and stuff like that. And 7 heads, I think. And, it's pretty horrific and scary once you think about it. But he's not really scary in real life. But that is a discussion for another time. And so how did he deceive humanity? Well, we already looked into the Genesis story last week. And so here are the things that humans did as a result of that deception, which we're going to talk about. Castles. It's like the Bible has castles too, and that picture is a portrait of the Tower of Babel, which is what we are going to be talking about. And so now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly. Let's use bricks instead of stone and tar from mortar." Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves, and otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." I love how somebody just randomly came up with the idea. It's like, hey, let's take some of that mud, make it into a brick, put straw in it, and then bake it thoroughly, at 400, 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit likely, and then let it cool for another hour, and then use those to make buildings. How are we going to stick together? Oh, we're going to make some, wet stone stuff, with sand and other things, and then put them between the bricks so that it'll dry off and make a rock substance. Yeah, I just love how specific somebody just came up with that idea. But I think that is evidence that this rebellion against God from humans was inspired by the devil and demons. So bricks are an invention of the devil. Yeah. So let's continue. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speak the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That's why it is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Now, make no mistake, God was not intimidated by these people. They're like, let's make a tower to heaven. And God's like, oh no, they're coming for me. What should we do? What should we do? God is not afraid of anything, okay? He sees these pitiful little humans thinking that they can be God and building their little tower. It's like, wow, look at these guys. You see, they're like so corrupt, right? Let's scatter them over the face of the earth. That's kind of like basically how it went, I suppose. But the thing is that the reason God decided to do this was not because that he was in danger of humans becoming as powerful as God. No, that's not at all the case. The thing is that the human heart was, was being deceitful, and it was completely dragging itself down. And it was because of their pride and hubris that they were, building that tower up to the heavens so that they could be like, we're gods now. We are like the Most High because we built this giant tower. And so what God did as punishment for their rebellion against God, because that's what it is, it's a rebellion, he just scattered them over the face of the earth. Says, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do stupid stuff like that again, because it is stupid for you to think that. And so, that's how the devil was created, and that's how the devil deceived humanity. And so let's look at the brighter side of fantasy, really nice, heartwarming stuff. And let's take a look at the chosen one that, the Bible speaks of. And so Isaiah 42, verses 1 to 4, here is my servant whom I uphold, the chosen one whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will bring justice to the nations. He will not shout or cry out or raise his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and the smoldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice. He will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on the earth. In his teaching the islands will put their hope. Now all these prophets in the Bible, I've been prophesying about the chosen one, the Messiah that is to come. And this is one of those things that that Isaiah said about the Messiah. And it's obvious that it's about the Messiah, right? So you'll think the Pharisees, would read this and be like, I don't know if the Messiah is going to be a warlord, is going to vanquish Rome, or if he's going to be like what this guy describes, just some guy who's like, hey, repent, come with me and you'll be saved. Yeah, but still, even though Isaiah kind of clearly spelled it out that the chosen one, the Messiah, would not come, with a sword and just being like, die, Romans, die. It's kind of really interesting how they were also deceived by lies that the Messiah would be something that he isn't. Like Jesus said in in one of the chosen episodes, I said, if the Messiah, John comes to you. John the Baptist, came to you, speaking about repentance and fasting and stuff like that. And he was like, yelling and being like aggressive. And you said that he has a demon. I come to you, totally calm, eating and drinking, and, also calling you to repentance. And you call me a glutton and a drunkard. It doesn't matter what I put, who is put in front of you, you will reject it. And so, let's continue. And again, it speaks about the chosen one being Jesus in Matthew. Then Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized by John. But John tried to deter him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? Jesus replied, let it be so now. It is proper for us to do this, to fulfill all righteousness. Then John consented. As soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water, and at that moment heaven was open, and he saw a Spirit of God descending like a dove and lightning on him. And a voice from heaven said, this is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. And so, God himself kind of, confirmed that this was the chosen one after all. So, and also just to point out, when it says the Spirit came down on him like a dove, it probably wasn't like in the shape of a dove, like the Action Bible will lead you to believe, but it was just like, really graceful, and then, lightning and everything. It was like so cool and graceful at the same time. That's kind of what it means. And so, now we have our chosen one, the person who's going to vanquish the dragon, the person who's going to face the dragon with the sword, in like full knight armor, like, I forgot a movie that was like that. Yeah, like that, yeah. And then it's like vanquish the dragon, or that prince from Sleeping Beauty. No wait, Sleeping Beauty, was it Sleeping Beauty? No wait, yeah, it was Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, I was thinking of Snow White. I got it confused with Snow White, I mean. But in Sleeping Beauty, the prince, faces off against Maleficent, who turns herself into a dragon, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to defeat the dragon, and then, creepily kiss a woman who was sleeping without her consent. Yeah. And so we got our two characters. Now let's see how, Jesus, the chosen one, is going to defeat the mighty dragon. And through magic and miracles. Well, Jesus is not a magician, but I'm saying magic and miracles. Like, this is where they square off against each other, right? Where magic goes against miracles of Jesus. Of course, miracles are more powerful than magic, but let's see how they do. So in John chapter 11, verses 28 to 44, Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there for 4 days. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. So a lot of course, the Pharisees and, the religious leaders of the time believed that, miracles can happen. But they thought the dead were gone. They were like, well, we can heal, we can pray for you, for your blindness, and God may take it away. But if you're dead, nah, hopeless, not at all, And that's why raising the dead, was such a big deal to them at the time. It was like God was like, hey, I'm going to raise the dead. Everyone was like, no way. It's like that should be definite proof that he was the Son of God, right? Because not even demons could do that. Demons, even though before Jesus died, they had control over death and the grave, they couldn't make somebody, bring somebody back to life because that was in God's power, not in the devil's power. They cannot control life itself. God can do that. And so demons and stuff like that were completely useless. They can do magic. They can do miracles too in their own way. They can heal the blind, heal the sick, and make the lame walk, I think, all to get them to not believe in God. They're powerful. They can see the future too. But one of the things that they cannot do is, well, first of all, they can't cast demons out because how can Satan cast out Satan, right? But also they cannot raise somebody back to life because that's in God's power now. God has the power to raise people back to life. God has control over life and death itself, not Satan and not the demons. And so it's already pretty stacked up against the dragon right now. So again, let's go into the book of Acts now, since that is the title of this series anyways. So in Acts chapter 16, verses 16 to 18, once when we were going back to the place of prayer, we were met by a female slave who had a spirit in which she predicted the future. She earned a great deal of money for her owners by fortune telling. As I said, demons can predict the future. She followed Paul and the rest of us, shouting, "These men are servants of the Most High God, you who are telling you the way to be saved." Honestly, I don't know why a demon would be doing this. I guess she's just kind of trying to get on their nerves or something like that. But and then so she kept this up for many days. Wow, that's very persistent. Just like imagine just doing that for like many days in a row, just like constantly following somebody who's like, these guys are servants of the Most High God, yeah. It's like hyping them up so much. Finally, Paul became so annoyed that he turned around and said to the spirit, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to get out of her." And at that moment, the spirit left her. And you know the rest of the story. I think if you don't, her owners, who got all the money from her, were like kind of, a little offended that they kind of took away their source of money, and they're like, let's have them locked up. Yeah, I guess she kind of annoyed people on both sides. But again, like I said, demons cannot cast out demons. That's what Jesus Jesus said, that how can Satan cast out Satan? If he was possessed by a demon, he could not cast out demons, because a house divided against itself cannot stand, right? And so also another interesting fact about demon exorcism. At one point, the Jewish leaders a while ago, before Jesus was born, were thinking of ways to really to test whether or not somebody was the Messiah, if they were going to perform miracles. And they went through a lot of things. They were like, he's got to heal the blind and stuff like that. There were three main things. I forgot what the other two were. But one of those things was that the Messiah had to heal somebody who was demon possessed, who was blind and mute. Now, the significance of that was that if you don't know how to exorcise a demon, make him do push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and all that kind of stuff, right? Just kidding. But if you don't know about demon exorcism, I don't blame you. I don't exactly know why you would. I'd be kind of concerned if you did know a lot about, traditional demon exorcism. But traditional demon exorcism, and many Catholics still practice this, is that you got to oh wait, no, he was both deaf and mute, not blind and mute, deaf and mute. It is that you got to establish contact with the demon. If you establish contact with the demon, then you can press the demon and then ask the demon its name, and the demon gives you his name. Then you could use that name to overpower the demon and throw him out of the person, right? But you can't do that if you're both mute and deaf, right? You can't hear and you can't speak. And so it would be impossible for somebody to actually perform a real exorcism on somebody and just be like, all right, Mr. Devil, get out of him, and then just leave him like in that movie The Exorcist, just just contorting and stuff like that. But Jesus, I didn't put the story in here, but Jesus did at one point heal a man who was deaf and mute of demon possession, and he just simply said, demon, get out. And then, the demon just left. And everyone was like, bro, that's impossible, right? That would be an impossibility to any other regular religious leaders. And so as you see, the miracles that Jesus performed had way more power and way more authority than the demon's magic or the dragon's magic. The dragon's fire. Jesus can put that out. Really cool, chosen one stuff. We should make a movie of it. I don't know. And so the third characters that we're going to be talking about are the humans caught in the middle. So in all of these fantasy movies, like Lord of the Rings is a really good one. You got the chosen one, Gandalf, or this guy Aragorn, I believe, and then you got Sauron and the orcs, right? And they're going together, clashing and just being like, I'm going to kill you, and you guys are like, no, we're going to bring justice back to these lands. And then they always depict the humans that are caught in the middle. They always show these different kingdoms and stuff like that, I keep forgetting everyone's name in these movies, but that king that was possessed by the white wizard, then they cast him out, and then they joined him and everything like that. Those guys, were just regular humans. They're like, we got no business with this war or anything. Then they were put in the middle of the war, and they're like, well, I guess we got to fight. And in this movie, it's always very. They make a point of showing how some of these humans, they're either for Gandalf and Aragorn, or they're for Sauron or something like that, or for themselves, mostly for themselves, right? Because everyone's in agreement that Sauron is completely evil, but if they're not for the Aragorn or Gandalf, then they are for Sauron. Even if they don't think that they're for Sauron, but they're really in it for themselves. They're like, yeah, let's preserve our own nation. It's we're a powerful nation. We can rise up. We can rise up and be the most powerful nation ever, right? But that's usually not the case. So let's talk about war. In case you can't tell, those are people running to each other for hugs. Yeah, they're going to hug each other. Anyways, so 2 Chronicles Chronicles. See what they So 2 Chronicles 36, 5-8. So there were plenty of real life wars like that picture of Narnia back there in the Bible, mostly in the Old Testament, because the Old Testament is probably the most violent part of the Bible. But as you know, like for years, the Israelites have been like struggling against the Babylonians, whom the prophets had prophesied that the Babylonians would defeat them. And no, everyone was like, bro, shut that guy up. You know, he doesn't know what he's talking about. We're Israel. We're God's country. And people like Isaiah and Jeremiah are like, no, you're not. You've turned your back against God, and now God's punishing you. It's like, you would never do that. Nah, let's keep worshiping these other gods. You know, it's like, you know, what's the harm in worshiping other gods as long as we're worshiping that God too? I mean, you know, we should be fine, right? And so they go to war time and time again, and mostly God would bail them out and like give them victory, but not this time. And so Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king. Jehoiakim was king of Israel, I believe, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. That's a pretty short-lived reign, by the way, because you know, it's like a lot of these other kings, their average reign would be like 40 years, right? But this guy only reigned for 11 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, his God. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, attacked him and bound him with bronze shackles to take him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also took to Babylon articles from the temple of the Lord and put them in his temple there. The other events of Jehoiakim's reign, the detestable things he did, and all that was found against him are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. And Jehoiakim and his son succeeded him as king. I think I got the wrong verse here, but there was this one king that Nebuchadnezzar took to Babylon, and he gouged his eyes out and killed his family right in front of him and all that kind of stuff. But that's where all this war, all these struggles, these physical struggles against each other landed. It landed in corruption. This king was corrupt. And most of the other kings in Jerusalem, you'll see if you read Chronicles and Kings, they were all corrupt too. A lot of them, you know, were like, you know, did evil in the eyes of the Lord, except a few, like Jehoshaphat, you know, he tried doing right in the eyes of the Lord. But most of the other guys, they were like, nah, we're in it for ourselves, you know. We'll worship other gods, you know. Those guys will save us because this God is useless, right? And so eventually they did a lot of evil in the eyes of the Lord, and eventually now God had risen up an army, a kingdom, to fight against Israel that was sure to win because they had the backing of God against it, because Israel had fallen out of favor with God. Because, you know, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And they lost. And so what makes it different today? I mean, Jesus sacrificed himself, so what's so different about this today? Doesn't that mean we are destined to lose this battle? Because, you know, it's like get our eyes gouged out if we try fighting, even because we are all sinful, right? We're all corrupt. And so, you know, if we try fighting against evil, would this happen to us too? Well, that's the thing, is that we are fighting a different kind of battle, a spiritual battle, going back to Acts. In Acts chapter 2, verses 22 to 25, this is how the disciples fought their spiritual battles. And I think this is at the point where Peter and the other disciples were arrested. No, this is after the day of Pentecost. Not the day, but the day of Pentecost, and this is what they were proclaiming to all the citizens. Fellow Israelites, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs which God did among you. Through him, as you yourselves know, this man was handed over to you by God's deliberate plans and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to a cross. But God raised him from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. And David said about him. I accidentally included that last verse in there. I didn't mean that, but. But this is the battle that they're fighting. They're fighting to win over people's hearts towards Jesus now. They're not fighting a battle to to be the dominant race in the whole world like Israel was in the Old Testament. That eventually got them all exiled to Babylon. Because that's not the way God originally intended to win this battle. He was selecting Israel for a specific purpose to start the battle of the Spirit in a way. And so the battle of the Spirit is being fought even today. And even some real battles are still being fought around the world today as well. But it's mainly about the Spirit now, because Jesus came to not to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law, so that that the law no longer has to be part of your life, but that if you accept Jesus Christ, the law can be fulfilled through you, I believe, right? So you can follow the law. That's a really difficult